Bob quickly stuffed his smartphone into his jacket pocket. Then suddenly, Lily said to Bob with a serious face, "Bob, why did you bury the baby in the mountain?" Hearing this, both I and Natalie stopped our conversation and looked at Lily, stunned. "What?" Bob's face turned pale. "What are you talking about?" Bob answered, flustered. "The baby I saw on your phone earlier," Lily said with a stern expression. "Show me the photos on your phone again." Prompted by Lily, Bob opened his photo album and showed pictures from their recent camping trip. "Not this one." Saying so, Lily quickly grabbed the smartphone from Bob's hand and swiped the screen. In an instant, Bob exclaimed, "Oh," and tried to take his phone back. Dodging Bob's attempt, Lily turned the phone screen to me and Natalie to show them the picture. It was a photo of an unfamiliar young woman. "She approached me first. She said she was having work issues and wanted some advice." Bob insisted he was just accompanying her because she asked him to. Thanks to Lily's mysterious ability, I came to know about Bob's hidden side. The reason Bob was coming home late and constantly looking at his phone late at night was this. I made Bob guide me to the mountain where the baby was buried. Holding the unearthed baby, I was heading to Bob's workplace a few days later. My name is Shelby Roberts. I'm 29 years old. I've been married to Bob for exactly a year now. Bob is a salaried worker like me and is also 29. I also work a full-time job and spend my days quite busy. My husband and I don't have any kids yet. I met Bob through a friend's introduction. After dating for several years, we got married last year. The wedding was truly touching. Bob helps with the household chores. He even cooks dinner once in a while. He's the perfect husband in my eyes. Marrying him, I felt truly blessed. About 20 minutes drive from our apartment, my older sister Natalie lives. Natalie is 3 years older than me and is already married with a 5-year-old daughter named Lily. Natalie and her family purchased a house where the three of them live. I adore my niece, Lily. Lily affectionately calls me Aunt Shelby and is very fond of me. Once, when I visited my sister's house, Lily suddenly told me, "Hey, when I was in Mommy's belly, I remember hearing your voice." Huh? I was genuinely taken aback. "Do you remember being in Mom's belly, Lily?" "I heard Dad's voice too," Lily replied with a serious face. I've heard of kids having memories from the womb, but this was the first time someone told me directly about it. When I told Natalie about this, she said, "Yeah, every now and then, Lily mentions things from when she was inside me." I never knew kids could remember such things. Impressed, Natalie shared more with me. "That's not all. Sometimes, when I can't find something, she tells me where it is. And it's not like she saw me put it there, but whenever I look where Lily tells me to, I always find it there. That's amazing. I can't quite put my finger on it, but Lily seems to have some sort of special gift," Natalie said, looking at me earnestly. A little way off, Lily was innocently playing with her teddy bear. It made me wonder if young children might have some sort of unique power. As these thoughts crossed my mind, I gazed at Lily. Some time later, Bob started coming home later and later. At first, I figured work must be tough, but lately, he'd often come home after midnight. I began to worry. Late one night, as Bob hurriedly headed for the shower, I called out, "Bob, you've been working late a lot, huh?" "Yeah, the boss just won't let me leave on time." With that, Bob quickly shut the door behind him and went into the bathroom. About 5 minutes later, Bob came out. I offered him the dinner I had prepared, but he replied, "Sorry, I'm just too tired to eat." "Well, I'm gonna head to bed then. Good night." It was already quite late, and I figured Bob would join me in the bedroom soon, given how tired he claimed to be. But an hour, then 2, passed, and he didn't come. Feeling restless, I quietly walked out to peek into the living room. In the dimly lit room, Bob was seated on the couch, engrossed in his smartphone. From the movement of his fingers, it looked like he was texting someone. And he had a big grin on his face. Why was he so happy, especially after such a long day? Was he messaging someone? And if so, who? My heart filled with anxiety. Lacking the courage to confront Bob, I returned to the bedroom. Hey, Bob, how about we go camping during the upcoming long weekend? One day, I brought up the idea. Although we were newlyweds, we hadn't gone out anywhere lately. Until not long ago, we'd spend our weekends going to the movies or visiting amusement parks. I wanted to go to the mountains with Bob and spend some quality time together. There's this campsite in the mountains. We could set up a tent, have a barbecue, and at night, look at the stars. Sounds fun, right? Bob didn't seem too excited, but I really wanted to go. I believed he'd enjoy it once we got there. All right, fine. But what about the car? Ours isn't big enough for all the camping gear. When Bob mentioned that, I decided to consult Natalie. One day, I visited Natalie's place alone. I asked her about the car situation. You can borrow our van. And feel free to use our tent too. Natalie happily offered. Her van was big and suited for mountain roads, with ample space for our gear. I thanked Natalie for her kindness. Thanks, you're a lifesaver. Take some time and relax together as a couple, it's been a while. While I was talking with Natalie, Lily overheard and chimed in, Are you guys going camping? I wish I could go. That'd be nice, we should go with Lily next time. The day before our camping trip finally arrived, and I borrowed a car from Natalie's house and drove it home. The next day, Bob and I headed out in that car for a 3-day, 2-night camping adventure. Breathing in the fresh air, surrounded by nature, I felt truly rejuvenated. Bob seemed to be enjoying himself more than usual, with a big smile on his face. I'm really glad we decided to head to the mountains, even if it took a bit of convincing. As I chatted with Bob, that was what I thought deep down. But late that night, Bob, who was sleeping next to me, got up quietly and started using his smartphone. I pretended to be asleep. He spent about 2 hours on his phone. It seemed like he was texting someone. The same thing happened the next night. Then, on the 3rd day, we returned home from the campsite. It was around 4 p.m. When were we supposed to return this car? Natalie said if we bring it back tomorrow, it'll be fine. As I responded, Bob's excitement was evident. So, can I take the car out for a bit? Now? I was surprised. We had just come back from camping, and he wanted to go out again. I wanted to invite some local buddies and try out a big car like this. You're not gonna drink, right? I promise, no drinking. When will you be back? I'll make sure to be home before midnight. We're on vacation, it's okay once in a while, right? After some persuasion from Bob, I reluctantly agreed. Whistling a cheerful tune, Bob hopped into the car and left in high spirits. Even if they were local buddies, I wondered if they would all be available on such short notice. While pondering this, I spent a lonely evening at home. Just a few minutes before midnight, Bob came back. See, I made it home before midnight and I didn't drink, Bob said immediately upon returning. Then, he quickly took out his smartphone and started checking it again. Bob, you've been on your phone a lot lately, I said with a hint of annoyance. I'm just texting the friends I was with earlier. Saying this, Bob took his smartphone to the bathroom. The next day, Bob and I went to Natalie's house to return the car and tent. When we gave them some snacks we bought near the campsite as a thank you gift, Lily was delighted. Natalie invited Bob and me inside and made us coffee. Lily had become quite fond of Bob as they had met several times. Since Natalie referred to Bob as Mr. Bob, Lily had also started calling him that. Lily and Bob were sitting on the couch playing together, with Bob responding with a warm smile. Soon after, Lily requested to see the photos Bob had taken during the camping trip on his smartphone. While Natalie and I were chatting, she asked, "How was the camping? Did you have fun?" "Yes, it was great. Thanks for the car and tent, they were a huge help." Suddenly, Bob said in a loud voice to Lily, "Don't touch it without permission." That's it, as he quickly took his smartphone away from Lily. Lily seemed to have fiddled with the smartphone. Nuh-uh, you can't touch things without asking. Natalie gently reprimanded Lily. I wanted to see more of Bob's photos, Lily said with a pout. Bob hurriedly put his phone back in his pocket. Suddenly, Lily said seriously to Bob, Bob, why did you bury the baby in the mountain? Hearing this, both Natalie and I stopped talking and stared at Lily in surprise. Bob's face turned pale as a ghost. What are you talking about? Stammering, Bob responded. The baby I saw on your phone earlier, Lily said with a serious look. Bob, show me the pictures on your phone again. Prompted by Lily, Bob opened his photo gallery to display camping photos. Not this one, Lily responded, swiftly taking the phone from Bob and swiping the screen. Bob, taken aback, exclaimed, "Oh," and tried to snatch his phone back quickly. Avoiding Bob's grab, Lily showed Natalie and me the phone screen. A picture displayed an unfamiliar young woman. She was holding a large baby doll plush, grinning widely. In the background was a claw machine. It seemed the photo was taken in an arcade. Presumably, the stuffed doll was a prize she won from the claw machine. Who's this? I asked in a low voice. Looking panicked, Bob tried to retrieve the phone from Lily. Just then, Lily handed the phone to me, and as I swiped, a photo of Bob and the young woman taking a selfie while closely hugging each other appeared. Swiping again revealed another picture of Bob and the woman, lying side by side, apparently in a car. Upon closer inspection, the car's interior matched the one Natalie had lent out. The seats were flattened, and it seemed the two were lying down, taking pictures. Bob's eyes darted left and right. Sweat beaded on his forehead. Natalie looked at me with concern. Just then, our brother-in-law, returning from work, entered. I wanted to immediately confront Bob about the woman in the photos. However, I couldn't do it in front of Lily and our brother-in-law. Thankfully, Natalie suggested that she take care of Lily with the help of our brother-in-law and that we should move to another room. Bob, Natalie, and I went upstairs, closed the door, and continued the conversation. Who's the woman in the pictures? Bob was reluctant to speak. However, after persistent questioning from Natalie and me, Bob finally admitted. The woman in the photo was a coworker named Jane Smith. She's 23. She had joined his workplace as a new recruit this spring. Bob had been cheating on me with this woman. I felt like I was about to pass out. She was the one who approached me. She said she was having trouble at work and wanted to talk, Bob tried to explain. Bob, can you show us what kind of messages you exchanged with this Jane? Natalie suddenly asked. I can't really do that, Bob exclaimed in distress. If there was infidelity, I want to see the evidence as your sister-in-law. Of course, Shelby should know as well, Natalie argued. Bob was adamant about not showing his phone, but after Natalie's strong persuasion, he reluctantly handed it over to her. When Natalie looked at Bob's phone, there was a ton of conversations with Jane. The two whispered sweet nothings to each other multiple times a day. One day, I was shocked to read their messages. It was a message from late at night when Bob went out with the car he borrowed from Natalie. Today was fun. It was only for a short time, but I'm glad I got to see you, Jane. I was so happy to get cozy with you in such a big car. I only sneaked out of the house today just for that. Bob, when are you gonna get divorced from your wife? Try to do it soon. Someday, if we can get married, you'll give birth to my child, won't you, Jane? Yes. I trust you and will wait for you. I was stunned and frozen from shock after reading this. What's this? Bob was sweating profusely, looking extremely uncomfortable. Bob, tell me everything. Bob, realizing he couldn't escape the situation, started to confess in detail. Jane had approached Bob for advice and they started going out for meals. Bob drove Jane home since it was late. She still lived with her parents so they couldn't go to her house, so they would park the car in a nearby park and talk until late. Eventually, they became intimate. The times Bob claimed to be working late, he was actually out on dates with Jane. One day, after coming back from camping, He wanted to go on a drive date using the car he borrowed from Natalie. Bob lied to me, met up with Jane, and they enjoyed their drive. They stopped at an arcade on the way. Upon Jane's insistence, Bob won a large baby plush toy from a claw machine. "It's like we're a married couple with a baby," Jane exclaimed joyfully, holding the plush. They decided to bury the plush toy in the mountain like a time capsule and promised to dig it up once they got married to remember the day. They placed the toy in a large plastic bag and buried it in the mountain behind the park where they often parked to get cozy. Since we just returned from camping, there was a shovel in the car which was convenient for them. "What's that all about?" I was disgusted to hear the story. Natalie, sitting next to me, was lost for words, frowning. Burying a baby plush in the mountains is creepy. And what's more heartbreaking is that they've already made promises to get married. Bob even told Jane, "If we ever get married, you'll give birth to my child." Bob kept emphasizing that Jane was the one who initiated things, but his comments also fueled the flame. This hurt me even more. We've been married for only a year, and we don't have children yet. Meanwhile, Bob is making promises of marriage with a young coworker and even thinking about having a baby with her. I broke down crying in front of Bob and Natalie. Natalie comforted me, while Bob looked around nervously. "But it's strange, how did Lily know just by looking at the picture that Bob buried a baby plush in the mountains?" After crying my heart out, I muttered. "Maybe that child has some mysterious powers," Natalie agreed. Bob looked puzzled. But he didn't have the courage to ask Natalie and me for details and once again looked defeated. It was getting late, so Bob and I returned to our apartment. Once home, Bob and I sat down to continue our conversation. "We've only been married for a year, and you have the audacity to betray me like this?" I glared at Bob and exclaimed, "I'm sorry. But really, if she hadn't tempted me, I wouldn't have done this." "You have some nerve saying that. You were clearly enjoying yourself with that young woman." Furious with Bob's excuses, I lashed out at him. "Bob, you're terrible, but that Jane girl is just as bad. She knew you were married." "Well, she's been having a hard time at work and struggling." I was flabbergasted by Bob's attempt to defend Jane. "So, because she seemed troubled, you thought you'd console her and get all cozy in your car? I've been concerned for a while. You've been coming home late, and I've noticed you on your phone till the early hours. I pretended to be asleep, but I knew you were constantly texting someone," I said loudly to Bob. He looked down, remaining silent. "For starters, I'm telling my parents and yours about this." When I said this, Bob started to panic. "It's only right to tell our parents. My sister already knows, so I can't keep this a secret." I exposed Bob's affair to both our parents. Soon, both sets of parents stormed into our home, berating Bob. "How dare you have an affair just a year into your marriage? Shelby deserves better. What were your wedding vows? You promised to make our daughter happy, but you betrayed her so easily." My parents vehemently rebuked Bob. Even more so, Bob's parents were livid. "We never thought you'd be such a disgrace. You're the shame of the Roberts family." "That's right. Don't even think about coming home. More importantly, we're so sorry, Shelby. To think you're still newlyweds. It's utterly embarrassing having a son like this." Bob's parents then apologized to me again. "Hey, what are you waiting for? Bob, apologize too." "I'm truly sorry." With tears streaming down his face, Bob said this after being berated by both sets of parents. "You have a wonderful wife like Shelby, and yet you do this. We're cutting ties with you, Bob. Got it?" After being thoroughly scolded and everyone left, Bob collapsed on the floor. "Bob, I want a divorce," I stated firmly. "You probably want to marry Jane and have kids with her. I'll gladly divorce someone like you." I admit I texted about marriage and kids, but that wasn't my real intention. I just wanted to make her happy in the moment. The one I truly love is you, Shelby. Huh? Hearing that just made me dislike you even more, I said coldly, leaving Bob with a bewildered look. There's no way I would be swayed by such words. I can't trust you anymore. I want a divorce. Please, reconsider. I never really wanted to marry Jane. It was just a fling. Bob, having betrayed me, was now desperately trying to make amends. Can you show me where you buried the baby doll? The long weekend ended, and it was Bob's day to go to work. I had to work too, but I took the day off. Excuse me, my husband works here. Thank you for always taking care of him. I loudly greeted everyone as I entered the office building. That was Bob's workplace. Everyone there was staring at me, completely taken aback. No wonder, as I was holding a stuffed baby toy covered in dirt. The sight was so bizarre that the employees were frozen in shock with wide eyes. Every step I took, dirt from the stuffed toy fell onto the office floor. Bob, his face ashen, hurriedly approached me. Yesterday, I had Bob guide me to the mountain where the stuffed toy was buried. And in front of me, I had him dig up that stuffed baby toy. The toy was in a large bag, but as we dug it up with a shovel, the bag tore, getting the toy dirty. Last night, I had thought of using this toy somehow to take revenge on the two of them. And what I came up with was this plan, to barge into the office holding this dirt-covered stuffed baby toy. Bob, never expecting me to show up at the office with the toy, seemed utterly panicked. My husband has been having an affair with a junior colleague, Jane, I said. Upon saying this, all the employees focused their attention on one woman. It was Jane, Bob's affair partner. Jane, like Bob, turned pale and looked down in sheer embarrassment. He told me that they would bury this stuffed toy until they got married, and once their dream came true, they would dig it up together, I said. I could hear whispers of disbelief from the employees, saying things like, "No way. That's so creepy, and sounds like a horror story." But what I don't get is why he would tell me something like this while he's cheating on me with Jane, I said, and then played a video on my phone. Bob's voice echoed loudly. Please, reconsider. I never really intended to marry her. She was just a fling. After the video finished playing, Jane, who had been looking down just moments before, sharply raised her head, her expression furious. Just a fling? Bob, what does that mean? She demanded. No, it's not like that. Bob stammered, lost for words. You promised to break up with your wife and marry me. You even said you wanted me to have your baby. Jane yelled. The employees were once again shocked by her words, and a commotion broke out. Here you go. I handed the dirt-covered stuffed baby toy to Jane. Then I handed Bob a divorce attorney's business card. We're getting divorced. From now on, let's communicate through the attorney. Overwhelmed by my determination, Bob silently took the card. I apologize for the commotion, everyone. I've finished my business here, so I'll be on my way. Said to Bob and Jane. I wish you two all the happiness. With that, I left Bob's office. I brushed the dirt off my clothes as I walked away. Later, I heard that both Bob and Jane confessed to their affair when questioned by their superiors. Concerned about the company's image, they were both promptly fired. Jane was furious upon being called just a fling. She transitioned from a timid new employee to a woman filled with rage. After I moved out of our shared apartment, Jane forcefully moved in with Bob. Bob was threatened by Jane, you never know what I might do. He had no choice but to do as she said. Bob was fired from his job and tried to find another, but Jane forbade him from talking to other women. Bob was fed up with Jane, but given her unpredictable nature, he reluctantly complied. Bob ended up working at a construction site with only men, putting in hard labor every day. Jane took away Bob's freedom, constantly checking his smartphone as if monitoring him. She probably feared someone else would snatch Bob from her, just as she had done. Not only was Bob burdened with paying the rent for the apartment and living expenses, but he was also pressed with paying me compensation for the emotional distress he caused. I had also demanded compensation from Jane for the same reasons. She seemed to have started working multiple part-time jobs, but she kept getting fired, hopping from one job to the next. The lawyer who helped with the compensation issue had a chance to meet with Bob. That's when he learned about the miserable life of Bob and Jane and reported back to me. After the divorce, I moved back to my parents' home. My workplace was within commuting distance from home, so I continued with my job as before. Living at home meant I had many more opportunities to see not just my parents, but also Natalie and Lily. Natalie genuinely sympathized with me, offering words of encouragement. "Shelby, you've been through a lot. You're still young, you'll surely find someone better." "I hope so." But thanks to Lily's mysterious power, I was able to part ways with that awful man quickly. I genuinely felt that way. It was a silver lining that I got divorced from such a man so quickly. I felt like Lily, with her mysterious power, was a lifesaver. I hope to someday meet an honest man and get married. And I'd like to have and raise children. For that time, I'm gonna work hard and save money now. With such thoughts, I'm living each day with a positive attitude.